So one of the challenges in visualizations in general is that oftentimes there are multiple levels of detail that we want to be conveying to the user at the same time. So there's a kind of overarching level, there's kind of a middle level, and there's a very detailed level. The problem is, if we want to show them the detail level, oftentimes that's really overwhelming, especially if we do it at first. Like if you present all the details all at once, typically users get overwhelmed and they don't get the point. They don't see they get so worked into the details that they're not seeing the big picture that you're trying to convey. So how can we, with Tableau, both give a clear presentation of the overall ideas and at the same time allow users to drill down and see the details in the cases where they're interested. This is really, I mean, it's true in visualization in general, and it's true in Tableau in particular, and we have a particular solution in Tableau called Hierarchies. So let's see how we can use hierarchies to kind of guide users through this kind of exploratory journey through the data. So let's start a new sheet here, and the hierarchy that we're going to be building is in publisher. So notice inside the publisher we have the city the publisher is located in, the country, and the state. This is a really natural hierarchy because countries are a top level object, then next are the states within those countries, and then cities within those states. So to create the hierarchy, I'm just going to drag state onto country. And it says, oh, you're trying to make a hierarchy. What would you like to call it? Well, let's call it location, because it's not really the country, it's not really the state anymore, it's kind of the hierarchy of those things. And then notice then I can drag city right in. The order here matters because we are talking about a hierarchy, and you can see that the symbol here is like an org chart. So it's really telling you like this thing comes first, this thing comes second, this thing comes third. And what hierarchies allow us to do is provide the user with a natural paradigm to expand or explode the data view. And so for instance, what do I mean by that? So we can use location like we use any other variable now. So let's put location in our columns and the sales count in our rows. So this is sales by country. Okay, country where the publisher is located. Okay, so this is all the sales attributed to a publisher that is located in the US, a publisher that is located in the UK, and a publisher that's located in New Zealand. So right now our level of detail on our view is at the country level. So we're at the top level object here. But simply by clicking on this little plus, the user can go down from the country level of detail to the state level of detail. So notice in this data set, that's not super interesting because in this data set, New Zealand is only represented by one state, the UK is only represented by one state, I mean Scotland's not a state, but you know what I mean, and US is only represented by one state, Washington. But in general, like if there were 10 states or provinces or protectorates or whatever in each one of these countries, we would get 10 different bars. We would get an exploded view. And in this way, the user could back out to the country level, get the overall picture, or then zoom in or explode or expand the view down to the state level of detail in order to get a little bit more fine-grained picture of what's going on there. Similarly, we can actually break it down not by state, but by city. And here things get a little bit more interesting in this particular data set because Washington has 2 cities. So you can actually see how these things are going. You can actually see how these things split out. So the other thing I'll point out is this works as well on geographic representations as it does anything else. So if I go up to my show me and I click, you can either do the chloropleth or you can do the bubble chart or whatever. But even here, I can break these things down where I can do just individual dots for each country. I can do individual dots for each state. And notice that this is kind of a subtle detail, but notice that the dot moves to the appropriate place. So for instance here, it's not clear what state this is in. It's just describing the US, New Zealand the same way, and then you can see that this dot for the UK is actually located in England. But if we expand it out, notice the dots have moved to their correct places. The dot for Scotland is now in Scotland, the dot for Washington is now in Washington, and the dot for Otago is now in Otago. And similarly, if we split by city, now Washington has 2, and we can actually zoom in and see this, where oh my goodness, where we have a dot for Friday Harbor up north, and we have a dot for Seattle down south. So I know this is kind of a silly example because there's not so many pieces to this hierarchy, and each hierarchy is not super wide. But the point is that the framework is the same everywhere. By identifying specifically dimensions, categorical variables that have a clear nesting structure, we can group them into hierarchies, and that hierarchy in Tableau allows users to back out all the way to the top level of detail and look at just the big picture, or drill down to whatever level of detail that they want to investigate more and more subtle differences between smaller and smaller pieces. So this is a great way to make sure that users can get at the overall idea without getting overwhelmed, but users that are interested can really dive into the details if they're so inclined.